Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today we are discussing a very important question. Should we stop selling single-use plastic bottles? We all see plastic bottles often, and they create a lot of waste and pollution. It's a big problem for our environment. Here with us today are two guests with different views. Sarah is an environmental activist, and she believes we should ban these bottles. David is a small business owner, and he has concerns about a ban. Welcome, Sarah and David. Our format today is simple. First, Sarah and David will give their opening statements. Then, they will have a chance to respond to each other. After that, we will have a short discussion, and finally, they will give their closing thoughts. So let's begin. Sarah, please share your view first.
Thank you, Mark. The problem is clear and very serious. Single-use plastic bottles are everywhere. You see them on the streets, in parks, and sadly, in huge amounts in our oceans. This plastic causes terrible harm. Plastic does not disappear. It breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, called microplastics. These tiny pieces get into the water, the soil, and even the air we breathe. Animals suffer greatly because of this plastic waste. Think about seabirds tangled in plastic rings, or fish that eat small plastic pieces thinking it is food. Many animals get sick and die because of our plastic trash. Turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish, and whales are found with stomachs full of plastic bottles. The pollution is visible everywhere. Our beautiful beaches are covered in plastic litter after a storm. Rivers carry plastic waste from cities out to the sea, creating large garbage patches in the ocean. This plastic pollutes the water, harming marine life and potentially affecting human health too. Cleaning up this mess costs a lot of money and effort, and it feels like a battle we are losing. That is why I believe we must prohibit single-use plastic bottles. It is a necessary action to directly stop one of the biggest sources of plastic pollution. Some people say this is too difficult, but it is not. There are good alternatives available now. Reusable bottles made from metal or glass are excellent choices. They last for years, and you can refill them easily. Many places now have water fountains, where you can get free drinking water. Using a reusable bottle is a simple change in habit, but it makes a big difference. We need to think about the future of our planet. Continuing with single-use plastic is not sustainable. It harms wildlife, pollutes our environment, and creates problems for future generations. Banning single-use plastic bottles sends a strong message that we are serious about protecting our world. It encourages innovation in packaging and promotes a culture of reuse. We must change our habits now for a cleaner, healthier future for everyone. It is time to take responsibility and make the switch away from disposable plastic.
Thank you, Sarah, for that clear statement on the environmental reasons for a ban. Now, David, please give us your opening statement. Why do you think prohibiting these bottles is not the right solution?
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Sarah, for sharing your perspective. I agree that plastic waste is a serious problem. We all see it, and we all want a cleaner environment. However, I do not believe that a complete ban on single-use plastic bottles is the best answer. First, let's think about convenience. Plastic bottles offer safe, clean drinking water and other beverages in a very convenient way. People have busy lives. They travel, they commute, they participate in sports and events. For many people, buying a bottle of water is easy and sometimes necessary. In emergencies, like natural disasters, bottled water is often essential for providing safe drinking water quickly. A ban could make these situations more difficult. Then, there is the cost factor. While reusable bottles are great, the initial cost can be higher than buying a single bottle of water. Also, alternatives like glass or metal might be more expensive for drinks companies to produce and transport, which could mean higher prices for consumers. This could affect people with lower incomes more. As a small business owner myself, I also worry about the impact on businesses. Many small shops, cafes, and restaurants rely on selling bottled drinks. is a significant part of their income. A sudden ban could hurt these businesses badly, possibly leading to job losses. We need to consider the economic consequences carefully before making such a drastic decision. Instead of a ban, I believe we should focus on better solutions for managing plastic waste. The main problem is not the plastic bottle itself, but how we dispose of it. We need much better recycling systems. We should invest in technology that makes recycling easier and more efficient. We need more public recycling bins, clearly marked, so people know where to put their used bottles. We also need better education, teaching people about the importance of recycling correctly. Companies can also play a part by using more recycled plastic in their bottles and designing packaging that is easier to recycle. It is about responsibility, individual responsibility to recycle, and industry responsibility to improve products and systems. Banning a product that is useful and convenient for many people feels too extreme. Let's focus our energy on improving recycling, reducing littering, and managing waste properly. This way, we can address the pollution problem without causing economic harm or taking away a convenient option for consumers. A balanced approach is needed, not a complete prohibition.
Thank you, David, for outlining the practical and economic arguments against a ban. Now we move to the rebuttal section. Each speaker will have a chance to respond to the points made by the other. Sarah, you have the first rebuttal. What is your response to David's points about convenience, cost, and recycling?
Thank you, Mark. David raises points about convenience and cost and suggests better recycling. While I understand the point about convenience, I must argue that the health of our planet is far more important than temporary convenience. The long-term damage caused by plastic pollution far outweighs the short-term ease of buying a plastic bottle. We have lived without single-use plastic bottles before, and we can certainly adapt again. David suggests we should focus on recycling, but the reality is that recycling systems are not working well enough. Globally, only a very small percentage of plastic produced has ever been recycled, maybe around 9%. Much of the plastic we put in recycling bins is not actually recycled due to contamination, cost, or lack of facilities. It often ends up in landfill, incinerated, or shipped overseas where it still becomes pollution. So, relying only on recycling is not a real solution to the massive amount of plastic we produce. Furthermore, even if recycling rates improved, producing plastic in the first place uses fossil fuels and energy, contributing to climate change. Reducing the amount of plastic we use is the most effective way to tackle the problem at its source. Regarding cost, David mentioned reusable bottles can be expensive initially. However, over time, using a reusable bottle saves money compared to constantly buying bottled water. And we must consider the huge hidden costs of plastic pollution. The cost of cleanup operations, the damage to tourism, the impact on fisheries, and the health costs associated with pollution. These long-term costs are much higher than any short-term economic effects of a ban. A ban forces us to innovate and adopt sustainable practices, which is ultimately better for the economy and the environment.
Thank you, Sarah. David, now it's your turn to respond to Sarah's points. She argues that convenience shouldn't outweigh environmental health, and that recycling isn't effective enough.
Thank you, Mark. Sarah makes strong points about the environment, and I share her concern. However, saying convenience doesn't matter ignores the real-world impact on people and businesses. Telling small businesses they can no longer sell a popular product is not a small thing. It affects livelihoods, jobs, and local economies. We cannot simply dismiss these economic impacts as less important. Sarah says recycling isn't working well enough, and she is partly right. Current systems need improvement. But that's an argument for investing in better recycling infrastructure and education, not for giving up on it completely. Banning bottles removes the incentive to improve recycling for this type of plastic. We can develop better technologies, implement deposit return schemes which have proven successful in other places, and increase the use of recycled materials. These steps can make a real difference without resorting to a ban. I also believe in consumer choice. Perhaps instead of a total ban, we could consider other measures, like a tax on single-use plastic bottles. This could discourage use while still allowing the option for those who need it, and the money raised could fund recycling improvements. Finally, are reusable bottles always practical? For tourists visiting a city, for large public events, or in areas without safe tap water, bottled water can be the most practical or safest option. A ban might create difficulties in these situations. We need solutions that work for everyone, everywhere, not just a simple prohibition.
Thank you both for your rebuttals. Now let's move into a brief discussion. I want to ask a few questions based on what you've both said. Sarah, David mentioned the significant impact a ban could have on small businesses. How do you suggest these businesses could manage the transition away from selling plastic bottles?
That's a fair question. Change can be challenging, but it also creates opportunities. Businesses could adapt by selling reusable bottles, perhaps with their own branding. They could install water refill stations and charge a small fee, or offer drinks in alternative packaging like cans or cartons, which are often more easily recycled than plastic bottles. Governments could also offer support or incentives to help small businesses make the switch to more sustainable options. It requires some adjustment, but it is possible and ultimately leads to a more sustainable business model.
David, Sarah argued strongly that recycling efforts, even if improved, cannot cope with the volume of plastic produced, and that reduction is key. What specific improvements to recycling do you believe could genuinely make a significant difference and counter her point?
Significant improvements are possible. Firstly, standardizing packaging materials would help. If all bottles were made from easily recyclable plastic like PET, and labels were designed not to interfere, collection and processing would be much more efficient. Secondly, implementing nationwide deposit return schemes, where people pay a small deposit when buying a bottle and get it back when they return it, dramatically increases return rates, often over 90% in countries that use them. Thirdly, investing in advanced sorting technology at recycling plants can improve the quality and quantity of recycled material. Combined with public education, these steps can make recycling much more effective than it is today, significantly reducing the amount of plastic ending up as waste.
But David, even with 90% recycling, which is optimistic, the remaining 10% of billions of bottles is still a huge amount of pollution, and it doesn't address the energy and resources used to make the bottles in the first place. Reduction has to be part of the solution.
I agree, reduction is important, Sarah. Better recycling and promoting reusables can work together. My point is that a ban removes a useful option and hurts businesses, when focusing on improving the system could achieve similar environmental goals with less negative impact. Perhaps the focus should be on unnecessary uses, rather than a blanket ban.
Okay, we are nearing the end of our time. Let's move to closing statements. Each of you will have a brief moment to summarize your position. Sarah, please give us your closing thoughts.
Thank you. My core argument remains clear. Single-use plastic bottles are causing significant, lasting damage to our environment, our oceans, and wildlife. We see the pollution every day. Relying on recycling alone has proven insufficient to handle the sheer volume of plastic we produce. Prohibiting these bottles is a direct, effective, and necessary step to reduce this harmful waste at its source. Alternatives like reusable bottles are readily available and better for the planet in the long run. Protecting our planet requires us to make bold changes in our consumption habits. Supporting a ban is supporting a cleaner, healthier future. I urge listeners to think about the impact of their choices and join the call to reduce plastic waste.
Thank you, Sarah. And now, David, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Mark. While the environmental concerns are valid, I maintain that banning single-use plastic bottles is too extreme and overlooks practical realities. These bottles provide convenience and safety in many situations, and a ban would negatively impact consumers and small businesses, potentially costing jobs. The focus should be on comprehensive solutions. drastically improving our recycling infrastructure, investing in innovation for better packaging, promoting responsible consumer behavior through education, and implementing effective waste management systems like deposit return schemes. Let's work towards managing plastic responsibly, rather than simply banning the useful product. I ask listeners to support efforts for better recycling and waste reduction, finding balanced solutions that protect both the environment and our communities.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sarah, for a thoughtful and important discussion today. You have both presented strong arguments, highlighting the difficult balance between protecting our environment and considering the economic and practical needs of society. We hope this conversation has given our listeners plenty to think about regarding single-use plastics. Thank you for joining us.